We appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us.
I don't think the government...
First of all, what is your takeaway from the vice president's visit there? He says there has been additional funding. However, he still blames Democrats for not helping stem the flow of migrants, causing these unbelievable crowded and sometimes filthy conditions.
You know, it's important to note that the vice president acknowledged the terrible conditions in at least one of the detention centers, and while there has been an increase in migrants crossing the border, it's also important to note that the crisis is in part a result of the administration's own policy decisions. So the decision to detain all those who cross the border, even those who are seeking asylum, and not releasing them, this is a policy change from the previous administration. Of course, other policy changes, the fact that the administration is focusing on stricter enforcement while not balancing that out with other measures such as increased immigration judges to help the backlog in the courts, increased aid to Central American countries to alleviate pressures in those countries, increasing refugee quotas, which we know they've decreased. So while the crisis is real, it has been exacerbated by the administration's policy decisions.
Yes, and we heard men behind that wire fence that we just saw where the vice president was standing, saying that they hadn't had access to showers or toothbrushes, that they were hungry. One said, "This isn't human. I'm not a terrorist." So the impact will be interesting, what perhaps Vice President Pence had from that situation right there and what he takes back to the White House about it.
Right, exactly. The conditions are appalling, and I think most Americans would agree with that assessment. And we'll need to wait and see what kind of, changes that we can see. Although, based on what's happened so far, I'm not sure that we can be too hopeful.
Right. Pivoting to another developing story that will happen this weekend and the ICE raids that are expected in major cities across the country. Do these undocumented workers have constitutional rights, or do you expect they will be taken in and deported?
Even undocumented immigrants have rights under the U.S. Constitution, so the right to due process, the right to remain silent. So most of those apply to undocumented immigrants. The immigrants that have been or that are going to be targeted this Sunday and the days following are those who have final orders of removal against them. So that means that immigration judges have signed orders to deport them. So I'd expect them to, once they have been apprehended, for that process to begin swiftly. That said, they do have some options according to their individual circumstances, of course, but they may have options for emergency motions to be filed on their behalf. For example, there have been reports that many of those family units that are going to be targeted never actually received proper notice of their immigration court hearing, so that they actually haven't been able to defend themselves or make asylum claims in court yet, and that the deportation orders were made in absentia. So there are some legal remedies that remain open, likely to many of the family units that will be targeted this weekend.
Well, there is a lot of fear and uncertainty surrounding it for sure. We'll, of course, be covering it. We appreciate your insights for us, Karnig Dukmajian. Thank you.